When is a search for cat boarding not a search for cat boarding, but rather a search for iguana veterinarian? It all has to do with the match types in AdWords. Many of you may not understand the difference between exact match with modifier, broad match, and negative keywords, but it's very important to being an effective advertiser on Google AdWords. In this video, I'm going to explain match types in AdWords and how to tweak your campaign so you're really laser targeting your ads in the right way. Let's get started. Welcome back. The first thing that we're going to look at, of course, is the keyword match types. This is probably the most common gotcha, the most common error that novice advertisers are making in AdWords. The code for all the goodies, the workbook, the toolbook, the worksheets, all this stuff relating to this free class on AdWords is 67. So it's jm-seo.org/67, and then you can register and get all the goodies. You can also click in the YouTube description below. So we're going to drill into keyword match types, and I'm going to sort of get started here. So we're going to talk about our match types. So what are we talking about? Let's go to a Google search bar. Let's just do a nice Google search. And I always use this example of cat boarding, dog boarding, this sort of thing when I teach the class on AdWords. So let's type in cat boarding and just sort of get our lay of the land. So let's say that we're in San Francisco. I'm going to change my location here to San Francisco. And let's say we're in San Francisco and we're going away and we need to board our cat. So we're going to Google cat boarding. Now the issue from an advertiser perspective is that keyword that people enter cat boarding, or is it something like cheap cat boarding or best cat boarding, or maybe I don't put the word cat in, maybe I put in pet, or maybe I put in veterinarian because I think that's why, vets who board cats or something. So you start to realize you've got to get those keywords, and you've got to figure those keywords out. That's the first step. And then secondly, you've got to tell AdWords where you want your ads to appear. So I'm going to log into AdWords here, and we're going to talk about match types. We're going to talk about how match types are set. So I'm going to show you in some sort of fake campaigns I've got set up here how this works. Now here's where the problems come. In the class materials, we're going to go through the ways that you tell Google what you want your ad to appear, when you want your ad to appear. So you have to speak a little Googleese here. Bracket means show my ad when the person types in cat boarding and nothing else. If they put in cat boarding San Francisco, that won't work. If they put in best cat boarding, that won't work. They have to put in just the words cat boarding. That's what brackets tell AdWords to do. When do you display my ad, Google? Those two words. Quote, that's called phrase match. That means if I put in quote in AdWords, it means show my ad anytime that what they're doing, what they're typing into Google, has those two keywords, cat boarding. So best cat boarding near my house would show my ad. But if they put in board my cat in the city, phrase match will not show my ad. So phrase match is your next match type. Then there's what's called modified broad, which is a super nerd term. You put plus signs in front of your keywords, and that means to Google anytime they enter the word cat, anytime they also enter the word boarding, show my ad, and do what's called word stemming. So cats singular, cats plural, but don't do any substitutions. Don't substitute pet for cat, dog for cat, this type of thing. That's your broad match with modifier. Here is where people get into trouble. When they type their keywords in, they do not put brackets, they do not put quotes, they do not put plus signs, they just type their keywords in there. And they're thinking that means what this guy means. They're thinking, hey Google, cat boarding, but they don't realize Google will do substitutions. It will say, you know what? It'll say, I gotta get that line to thing. It is gonna say, cat and gerbil is close enough. Boarding and vets is close enough. Iguana and boarding. So you could technically run your ad on iguana veterinarians even though you type in cat boarding. So that's what's called broad match with modifier. Most people do not understand their match types. And then the final match type is your negative match type. So if they put in the word cheap, don't show my ad because, like, of course, I'm the most expensive cat boarder in San Francisco type of concept. So I have a nice little chart here in the materials with what those mean. Now, where do you set them in AdWords? Let's go over to AdWords. I'm going to go over here to some test campaigns. We're going to drill down into groups, and I know I'm going to do this pretty quickly. You can stop the YouTube and check it yourself. So go into your group, into a group, then go over to, oh, I've got it to display network only. Let's click here where I'm running on search. You got to be running on search network only. That's the second gotcha. But let's go look at search network only, and let's go down here to cat boarding, and then let's click on keywords. Okay, now let's click add keywords, and here is where Google is no help at all. See that little guy right there? Match types. This is where it starts to explain what these match types are. Look at that. Most people never click here, don't understand, and they kind of buy Google's idea that it's close. So what you want to do is type in, let's say we want to run on cat boarding. The best match type is plus cat plus boarding. That's a pretty tight match, but it'll let you get to things like cat boarding in San Francisco, or cats in boarding, or boarding of cats plural. So that's your best match type, is plus plus. What you do not want to do, unless you really know what you're doing in AdWords, is not put quotes or pluses around your keywords. That will allow Google to think for you. And I'm going to show you what a train wreck that can be in a second. So you're going to type those in here. Your best match is plus cat plus boarding. So always put plus signs in front of your keywords. That keeps it pretty tight. You can also do exact match, cat boarding, which means nothing but cat boarding, no other words. I got to spell it right, of course. Or you can do quote, cat boarding, quote. But do not just enter your keywords. That means Google think for me. And Google is really like the bartender in a bar. It's going to keep you drinking. It's going to throw everything it has on there. It's very loose match type. Okay, now let's talk for a second about negatives. Let's say I don't want cheap. At the very bottom of the screen, click on negatives, and usually best to add at the campaign level. And see how I've added the word cheap here, or free, or kittens, or Oakland? Click add. A negative keyword means stop my ad. So if I put in the word cheap here, and somebody types into Google, cheap cat boarding, it will not show my ad, even though I have cat boarding, because the stop word, the negative word, is cheap. So another part of your match types is understand your negatives and put those negatives in. You should always have some negative keywords. Tighten up your match types on Google. Very, very important. Now, let's go over here. Now, so you're running, what's happening? Most people, when you log in, they have no idea. They have no idea. So I looked at some of our different clients, different ones we've set up over time, and I obviously can't share their materials with you. But I looked at one. The keyword was originally set to negotiation training. So they thought, hey, we're selling executives, we're doing training for executives, awesome kind of weekend class for executives on negotiation training. Executives learn how to do business details. Now look what Google matched it with. Look at this matches. It matched negotiation to debt settlement. It matched training to class. It matched training to seminar. So they were actually running on contract negotiation seminar. They were running on hostage negotiation training. That's your negative, right? They should have put hostage as a negative. They were running on negotiation mock-up class. What a disaster, because they weren't running correctly. They were running on broad match. So if you're running, you can go and see what those are. And I'm going to have a screenshot here of how to get to what you're actually running on. If you did not understand when you set up your AdWords what broad match was, you just typed your keywords and you trusted Google. Google is like the bartender. Don't trust the bartender. Go into your campaigns, go down to your group level, click on keywords, click on details, click on all, and then you're going to see what keywords you're running. So I can show you over here. Now our campaigns are pretty well set up, but I can show you over here. I'm going to go over here to Google. I'm going to click all time so we can get some data here. I'm going to go over here to broad match. This is a campaign we set up for broad match for quite a while back. So you go into your campaign, into your group, into your keywords. Go down here. Look how hidden it is. Details, all, and presto, you can actually see what you ran on, and you can start to see, and you can look for some. This is the one, we didn't like this one, so we can exclude it. So if you are running on broad match, look at what you're actually running on. Hopefully you won't be too horrified. If you are, you can get rid of them, or even better, tighten your matches up to be the plus signs. First gotcha is know your match types. Now, let's go back to our home page here. So all the class materials, jm-seo.org/67. This is our first gotcha. You have to know your match types and understand the way to tell Google when to show your ads correctly, or there's a high probability that you will be burned. Thank you so much for watching gotcha number 1. Sign up for all the materials and please watch the other 3 gotchas here to really tighten up your AdWords and be a better AdWords advertiser. Thank you so much for watching.